Like I said, my man's gonna take it, and then we can do something else with it.
Right, right.
Add some other pieces to it, do a different production. Okay. I slide over this way, though. Give E-Life some play.
Yeah.
Right there, it's cool.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, we're gonna we're gonna wait for it to build.
Right. We on?
Yeah, we are. We're gonna give them time to come on.
All the gangs, most of the gangs from out. Get over the damn spot right here.
Whoa, here come people.
Wow. Wow.
I'm just so delighted that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Something.
Pace was good. 16 was good. I should have told you that I was coming on, but yeah. Somebody said, Professor Griffin, you know you need to stop that, whoever that is. Yeah, I gave up that Griffin thing a long time ago. I gave that slave master back his damn man. I stay in frame right there.
It's good.
16, you good? Peace, Quan. All right. Yeah, I should hit y'all up and let y'all know I was coming on, but I'm doing some improv. But I did tell everybody I was coming on today because I was interviewing this brother right here. All right. So today we're going to be. Anyway, let me start off by saying this is Professor Griff of Sirius Mindz. Thanks to everyone that supports the platform, as I always say, and a civilized greeting for everyone in a very uncivilized time. And as y'all know, on the weekends, normally I travel. And as in my travels, I like to get with interesting brothers and sisters, business people, all kind of people to see what's going on. But I prompted y'all on this one. I told you I was getting my comic book in. I got the comic book in. And me and this gentleman has been talking now 2 years about doing something. It's been about 2 years. But anyway, so for the people now, we're going to broadcast this live and then we're going to rebroadcast it and do a production and add some other images because we want people to see exactly some of the things that we're talking about. So we're going to leave that up to Hustle. We're going to leave that up to Shane to make this thing happen. So anyway, for the people that might not know you, introduce yourself and then introduce your book.
All right. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate
give thanks, man.
You having me out.
I told you anytime I'm in this area, I'm going to call you. We're going to break bread. And then eventually, we're going to do a project together. I don't know what that book is going to be called, but we're going to make it happen. Yeah.
So first of all, hello to everyone out there. My name is Will Jones, and I'm president and founder of Afrofuturism Network. And I'm here to talk about my book. The title of the book right here is Ex-Con, Voodoo Priest, Goddess, and the African King.
Now, you got to say that one more time, a little bit slower, so 16 can get that.
I got you. The Ex-Con, the Voodoo Priest, the Goddess, and the African King. And basically, peace, bro. Basically, what I'm talking about is I'm analyzing the history and portrayal of Black folks in comic books. For me, I've always loved comics. I've always loved history, so this was an opportunity for me to put the two together. And for folks out there that are not familiar with the term Afrofuturism, basically, this was a term that was coined in the 90s. But it is looking at the role of Black folks in the realms of science fiction, fantasy, whether it be through art, literature, or music. That's not to say Black folks started writing in the 90s. We've been writing science fiction and fantasy. I mean, you can go all the way back to W.E.B. Du Bois. You can find W.E.B. Du Bois had written a short story called The Comet. There's an excellent book called Blake's or The Huts of America. That's Black speculative fiction. So there's a long history there. And that's just talking about Black folk on this side of the world. We've been telling stories, of the fantastic and the supernatural since the beginning. But here on this side of the world, we've been telling these types of stories since the 1800s. But the term wasn't coined until the 90s. So Afrofuturism Network, which is my company, What I'm looking to do is bring together all these creative minds, whether it be comics, film, literature, whatever, have them come together in one space, share their ideas, share their vision, and also play a role in protecting the image of Black folk.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because one of the important things we have to remember is like image is everything.
Right.
You know, that stays with us more than, you know, any words or anything else, the image. So I'm big on looking at and analyzing the history and imagery of Black folks in comic books.
Oh, okay. So one of the questions that I have, and just real quick, and I'm going to say this up front. I would normally say this for the middle or the end. Real quick, from concept to completion, what would it take, Professor Griff, or anyone out there that has a story that they want to tell, and they want to get the story illustrated to the point where people see it, so people can see it, and end up with a comic book like this one? Mine's 30 pages, full color. Mine's is based on Public Enemy's song, "Who Stole the Soul." Concept to completion. What would it take to put a comic book together?
Well, what it takes, just like with anything else, takes the time. So to answer that question would be how much time you dedicated to it. Because there's a whole writing process where basically you think of it as the same way someone might lay out a movie. You know, you're laying out a screenplay pretty much for a comic. Then if you already have an illustrator and you and that illustrator are working together, the process can go a lot faster. If you have to go out and find one, then it might add something to it. And once again, you know, like through my website, I'm trying to connect people with illustrators that might be, you know, interested in to say, hey, I like his or her particular style, and it matches well with what I'm talking about. It can take a matter of months, okay, or a year, but it's more about how much time and energy are you giving towards this project.
All right, so let's speak in block letters. First thing is you got to have the story.
Yes, the concept, the idea. So you might have an idea, and let's say, for example, you just want to talk about a superhero that's protecting his community. That's your concept. So now you have to start creating characters to fill in that story. Now you have to have a story arc, where basically you're going to have that journey of the hero. Okay, so you're saying, how is this guy starting? How is this woman starting? What's their story? Okay, and sometimes what will happen is, even if you don't tell that particular story in the comic, it's good to have their origin in your own head because it helps you flesh out the story as you go along.
So how many other supporting characters should you have centered around that main character?
Once again, it depends on the type of story you're trying to tell. You know, I mean, you have some people that create entire universes. You know, where they just have multiple characters and so forth. And also, you might ask yourself, am I basing it in the real world or a fictional one? So that's two different things. So if you're basing it in the real world, the characters are going to be there, you know. And if you're basing it in a fictional one, now you have to build that world from the ground up. And you have to have the rules and everything else that goes with it.
So basically, as simple as having a concept, write the story. Once you get the story written, get an illustrator, have the illustrator kind of go frame by frame with you to get it done. Pencil, then color.
Yeah, and the great thing now is, you know, if you go back years when brothers and sisters were creating their own comics and it wasn't Marvel or DC, the quality wasn't there because the technology wasn't. But now with the technology that people have in their own homes, you're seeing quality books come out on the independent market that look just like something that Marvel or DC would put out.
If y'all just tuning in, this is Professor Griff for Sirius Mindz. This is my man, Will Jones. Very, very, very interesting book out. Very, very interesting gentleman here, because it's very rare that you meet people that are really into what they into. Because when you start thinking of comic books, you automatically think of teenagers, stuff that you used to collect when you were small. But to see, you know, grown men that are writing stories and with books out and that kind of thing. Just to let y'all know, we had E-Life, as y'all can see, Life here, Everlasting Life here in Capitol Heights, Maryland. I'm about to do my lecture in about an hour or so, waiting for Soleil to get here. She's just finishing her class in Lanham at her martial arts school, Dragon Academy. And we're here today talking about comic books. So I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a series of questions, but I need some short answers so my audience can get it.
That's a bet.
Who's your number one superhero comic book character?
Number one would have to be Black Panther.
And
this was before the movie. This was before all the hype. I've been a Black Panther fan for.
Were you a collector of comic books?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Some of us weren't. Like, I was not. I used to get them, read them, toss them. Yeah, okay, so cool. Black Panther. All right. Name me 5 black superhero characters that the audience right now watching it should know.
Should know. Now, this is what I'm going to do, because all too often we always talk about Marvel and DC, right?
Okay.
What I want to do is shout out these brothers that's doing it independently. All right. That's what I want to direct people towards. You have a company called Unique Studios that's putting out some great stuff. Okay. They're putting out EXO, which is taking place on the continent of Africa. Okay. You got Kid Comics putting out some great stuff. All right. So I want to direct folks to those particular websites. You got PB Soldier. And as a matter of fact, if I can hype up, promote somebody else for a moment, he's holding Kim Fest. The brother is holding Kim Fest in Newark, New Jersey on the 13th of April. And I'm going to be out there speaking as well. And this brother is also an educator. He's an educational leader. He's put out a comic and so forth. So there are so many black comic book creators that are out there. And like I said, I get it. I love Marvel. I love DC. But we got to start directing our attention, our energy, and our dollars. You know what I'm saying? Toward these brothers that's been doing it from the beginning. And if folks are interested, there are several black comic conventions or black themed comic conventions that are out there.
Now give them a site where they can go see a list of where these conventions are being held.
Okay. There is a comic book convention website. I think it's like comicbookconvention.com, unless you're on that. But I will direct you to BlurredCon. Okay. BlurredCon is an event that goes down in Virginia. That's coming up real soon. Out west, we got folks. I was part of Afro Comic Con, which takes place in Oakland. Okay. Like I said, you got Kim Fest. You have Blurred Fest, which is coming up in New Orleans. And there are black comic book conventions throughout. And I haven't found, once again, so I'm trying to put together, I want there to be one spot that you can go to and find all of the black comic book conventions if you're interested. So that's what I'm in the process of actually trying to put together. All
right. My next question, female comic book, black female comic book superheroes.
Yes.
Help me out, bro. Yeah. I've been trying to, I'm serious, because I started writing one in my next comic book.
Right.
I have mine, Who Stole the Soul came out a minute ago.
Right.
I was supposed to have this out 2 years ago.
Right.
When we started talking. Yeah. But yeah, you hooked me up with a dynamic illustrator. We was going back and forth. He was waiting on me for the story. Right. Some things came up.
Right.
So yeah, but I got to get back in touch with him. But I'm gonna get it done.
Right.
Black female superhero characters.
Yeah.
How come we don't see a lot of them? How come,
They're growing in numbers if we're talking about, like I said, with the mainstream comics, doing Marvel and DC, because they're starting to see success. However, like what I talk about in my book is, when I say the goddess in the title, I'm talking about Storm from the X-Men. She's hands down one of the most popular characters, male, female, black, white, in comics. Right. She's on the big screen. She's been in cartoons. But when I looked at her history, I found some interesting things. Okay. In the beginning, they weren't even going to have her be a fully formed female. They're going to have her be a cat. Okay.
Wow.
And if you go back and look at some of the early illustrations of Storm, she had a cat-like eyes. So it's playing on that.
Right.
And I also looked at with Storm the white male fascination with the black female form, because very early on she was nude for no reason in a lot of the comics. So I began to look at this obsession with, out of all of the female characters that were in the X-Men, why was she the one that was most often shown nude?
Wow.
And I began to make connections between the way she was being portrayed and treated, and looking at Sarah Bartman, or the way some folks might know the Venus Hottentot.
Right.
So I started to draw parallels between those two characters.
So you really do balance the history out with it? Okay.
Yeah.
That's deep, man.
Yeah.
And this is why you requested so much to come speak at libraries and other places?
Yes.
Okay, that's beautiful. And that's very necessary.
Right.
To tell the story through the comic book.
Yes.
My other question, is this lucrative? Somebody looking at this and say, I'm an illustrator.
Yes.
I got some stories I want to tell.
Right.
And then I want to double back on the Black Panther thing, because I really want to know, because I think I contacted you, because some people contacted me from Hollywood and basically said that since the Black Panther thing was so successful, why can't you use your comic book or your graphic novel and send that into Hollywood as a script? This is almost a script.
Right.
You could easily turn this into a movie.
It's a storyboard.
Right, it's a storyboard. Right, exactly. So those calls was coming in, and I'm calling everybody I know, texting people like, look, if you got a comic book, Hollywood is looking for that next thing.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So is it lucrative?
Is it lucrative? That's a yes or no type thing, because once again, it's how much time and energy you putting into it.
Right.
Okay. And once again, I can't say this enough. If you're out there and you're buying these comic books and so forth, make sure you are assisting these brothers that are putting out these comics. I speak to them. I held a comic book convention of my own, and so many of them talk about the difficulties they have in getting black folk to buy their work, because they don't want to be seen as the black customer going to the black guy to buy their comics. But to go back to your initial question, it can be lucrative. You got a lot of people that do commission work. You got a lot of people that freelance and people that create their own comics. Now, these guys, these men and these women that are out here making their own comics, they're hustling. They're at these comic conventions. They're at these shows. They're selling online. They're doing all that they can do to produce it. And also, you don't know where it's going to go. You don't know who's reading your work. You don't know who's seeing your work.
Right.
So, yeah, it might be someone from Hollywood says, oh, man, I picked up on this new property. You know, folks now are big into Marvel and DC, so these companies are going to start to go to other companies and other places where maybe they can get a little bit cheaper or bring some young talent to the surface.
Okay, so now once I got 3 of these out, or even my first one, how do I get it distributed and put in comic book stores?
Okay, now that's an interesting thing, because if you're talking about distribution, there's one particular company.
Don't tell me Diamond, right?
Yeah, they got that on lock. They're the ones that's putting out the previews and so forth. So a lot of folks go through them.
Does Diamond give you a decent percentage?
As far as I know, yes, but it's also based on volume and so on and so forth. So what a lot of people are doing is they're going the independent route, okay? And they are simply, like I said, doing that one-on-one direct, where they're going straight to the customer through the conventions and through certain bookstores. Okay, for example, when I first wrote this book, Amalgam Comics and Coffee House out in Philadelphia, I was doing an event out there, and the sister that owns the store out there, she's like the only black woman on the East Coast, if not the whole country, that owns a comic book shop. She came up, she looked at my book, sight unseen, she thumbed through it. It's like, I want your book in my store.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's Amalgam out there in Philadelphia. She also does a lot to promote independent comic book artists. Okay, independent comics like this one, where they're not maybe going through Diamond and so forth. Okay. Sanko for Books out in DC.
DC, right.
Okay, they've done the same thing. So there are a lot of independent bookstores that are looking to help folks when maybe Diamond and so forth may not be.
Oh, okay, cool. So now that the book is done, it's being distributed, it's out there, whether I do the independent route or just a traditional route, whatever. How do I get on the speaking circuit if I'm an educator? Because I want to be able to tell my story in front of children.
Right.
How do I go? There's people that's going to watch this, going to say, look, about time somebody's speaking, because I've been doing comic books, you know, all my life and blah, 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 blah.
Right. In terms of getting out there and speaking, you know, and I'm sure folks out there already know this, I can't put enough out there just to say that it's about how hard you're working at it. So, for example, when I started doing this, I did a lot of free engagements where I just went places, started talking to folks, and then I began to contact libraries at their headquarters and say, look, this is what I do. I want to come out, either speak to the youth, and I'm also an artist, or I want to teach them how to illustrate. So a lot of libraries allow me to come in and speak and so forth. And the more you do it, the more you're out there talking to people, not just through social media, and that's great, but out there actually meeting folk, you're going to find that your network and your numbers going to grow and your name will get out there.
What prompted you to do, how many pages is this? 200 pages as opposed to 20, 30 page comic book?
Right. Well, the comics are coming. Okay, I'm working on that. So definitely coming.
Right.
But in terms of the book, this was something that I started in school, you know, and this was something I just enjoyed researching and reading about, because one of the things that a lot of people misunderstand is, you know, if you go see a movie and I tell you it's a historical film or it's a drama, your antenna's up, you're paying attention, right? But if I tell you it's about robots and aliens and monsters, you relax a little bit. Or if I tell you it's a cartoon, you relax a little bit. And what you'll find is it's in that type of entertainment where some of the strongest messages are sent.
No, you're right.
You know, so for me, it was about...
and the hidden ones.
Exactly. So for me, it was about analyzing this, because anything that you read is no different than anything that you eat. It's either going to make you better or it's going to make you sick. So I wanted to look at this because there's such a subculture within this country. Now it's becoming mainstream culture. You know, the Superman emblem, for example, is one of the most popular symbols on the planet. They say it's only second to the Christian cross. You go anywhere in the world, somebody knows that Superman symbol.
Right.
You know,
right.
so how powerful is that?
Right. Signs and symbols, you're right.
So if you're looking at that, you gotta analyze.
Right, exactly.
And that's what drove me to do that.
Right. And how long you been doing this?
Wow, this one?
Yeah.
Man, I camped out in the Library of Congress for about 2 summers.
Woo.
You know, and I did my research, and there was a lot of stuff that I did at home, but there's a lot of stuff I had to go out and do. So like I said, I literally camped out in the Library of Congress for about 2 summers.
Right. If someone on my platform here, of course, we have some dedicated people. We got 16 who's the moderator for the channel.
Okay.
We have dedicated people, Johnny Taylor, Quan, LaShawn Blockboy, and some other people that are really dedicated, and they're on all the time.
Right.
If they got a cousin, a nephew, a niece, or a little sister, or a son, or a daughter that say, okay, listen, I have an interesting story I want to tell.
Right.
Where can I go, and can I hire Will to walk me through that process? Let's just say somebody want to hire you to walk them through the entire process from the concept, their idea, into an actual physical comic book. Could you do that?
Oh, no question.
Okay, cool.
No question. And I can quickly give out my information.
Yes, sir.
So first up, once again, my name is William Jones. You can find me on Facebook under William Mason Jones. You can also find me on the Afrofuturism Network. You can find me on Instagram, Afrofuturism Network, Twitter, Afrofuturism Network, and my website is afrofuturismnet.com. And you can actually order the book on the website, and you can also order the book on Amazon and also barnesandnoble.com. And so folks can contact me through those means, and I can help them walk through the process.
Oh, okay. I was in a comic book store today, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
I don't know. That's the side of me that y'all don't know. Anyway, I was there this morning, bright and early.
Right.
And I'm trying to see what makes, on the top row, because I'm too short, I see them, but I can't touch them and thumb through them.
Right.
And then they're in hard plastic like this one is. And they're rare.
Right.
What makes them rare?
Okay, what happens is this. You go back to like the 1940s and 50s, right? What happened was this, a study was done. And this guy was trying to argue that comic books made people gay, tried to argue that comic books led to the criminalization of young people, okay? That it led to racism or increased racism. So he comes out with this book, Seduction of the Innocent. And he actually testifies before Congress.
Wow.
So what ends up happening is in the United States, parents started throwing their comic books out, okay, because they were afraid it was going to corrupt their children because of this book. It was a guy by the name of Wortham, okay, Seduction of the Innocent. So that's why comics from that era are so rare, because so many were tossed out.
Wow.
It almost shut down the comic book industry. Okay?
Wow.
You had guys that were comic illustrators that were either homeless or on the verge of being homeless. So a lot of those comics are so valuable because they're so rare. Now, moving forward, what can make a comic book rare is, or valuable, is if that character blows up, in terms of, today's market. People start to recognize, like, oh man, like for example, Wolverine blew up. He started in the page of the Hulk. Right. He didn't start off with the X-Men. Right. So if you got that first appearance of Wolverine in the Hulk, because he's so popular now, that's valuable.
And what do you think that book is worth now?
Oh man, you could go. It's in the thousands, man. And if and more recently, I'm sure some of the folks out there watched The Walking Dead. Yeah. When that comic came out, it was in limited print because it was independent. Nobody heard about it, so they didn't print a lot of first issues. But now that show has blown up, that first comic is now considered rare and valuable.
So if you got somebody that got these comic books in their garage, in their attic, in the basement, in a box, go get these comic books, dig them back up. Go to your comic book store. You can get the hard plastic like this, or you can get the simple, really thin plastic that'll preserve the comic book for 10 to 20 years. Right. What happened with me with my comic book, I stopped selling it. I put it away and just said, I'm working on the next one. I was online, just kind of doing some research. Somebody was selling my own comic book for $45.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's limited release. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. And Public Enemy, Professor Griff, always popular. And not to mention, if you're selling it online, you want people on the other side of the globe. See, that's another thing you got to consider. Right. Just because folks in the States may not think your book is hot, all it needs is if it blows up, You know, I saw someone asking about manga. If it blows up in the Asian market, that's all you might need.
Right, exactly.
You know,
right.
And real quick, I saw the question. Did I address that real quick?
Yeah.
So
I mean, look, this is a free flowing kind of thing.
Oh, I got you.
This Sirius Mindz. We
good. Still asking about manga and anime. I'm a huge fan of that.
Okay.
There have been some problematic imagery coming out of Japan as it relates to black folk, and I'm sure people that watch it are familiar with that. There have been some, you know, when they go back to that old stereotype with some of their characters in terms of the exaggerated features and so on and so forth. So there's been some progress in that. But if you look at some of the early depictions of black folk in anime and manga, it's very problematic. Yeah. You know, and some of those characters, like, I don't know, like folks out there, somebody asked, I'm sure you're familiar with Dragon Ball Z. Yeah. They had a character, Mr. Bobo, and I mean, he was just black with the red lips, you know. Wow. And what they ended up doing is when they show it now on like Cartoon Network, they changed them blue. Because folks started complaining and people picked up on it. Right. You know, Pokemon had to go back and pull back one of his characters because of the way it was being shown. So folks are becoming, and once again, that's why I did what I did, because there's a whole history as to how we've been shown and depicted in the pages of comics.
Right. Wow, that's very interesting. Could you explain to the audience, and I'm not sure if this is even a valid question, the importance, though, of preserving the history of black superheroes?
Oh, no question.
In the comic book world.
No question it's important. There's this great image, and it was used as a ad in magazines. I'm sure some people have seen it. We had this black kid, and he's looking in his bathroom mirror, and he has the towel wrapped around his neck. So I'm sure. And you got the white reflection.
The white reflection, right?
Know? So this young black kid is seeing himself as a white man he could never be, but that's what he envisioned.
One correction. He didn't have the towel around his neck. You know what he did? He put the towel around and stuffed it here because it was his cape.
Yeah, it was his cape.
It was his cape.
That's the one. That's the one.
Right, okay.
And that stuck with me. I remember seeing that as a kid. Right. And that sticking with me.
Right.
Because that was the thing. When you were black coming up, you had black superheroes, but they weren't at the forefront. They were there, but they weren't really there. You were pretty much seeing yourself as a white character. Right, so going back to your question, this becomes important because this is the new mythology. You know what I'm saying? These comics are the new mythology. Right. Now, you talk to the average person, even if they don't read comics, they know who Spider-Man is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You saw the effect that Black Panther had when it came out in theaters.
Yes, of course.
You had some people that never saw a comic book film in their life. Right. But they lined up to see that. So it just shows you how powerful that image was. You had folks dressed in African attire from different parts of the continent, you know, as far as its style was, going to the movies to see this. So that just kind of shows the importance, significance of it. And if it wasn't important, okay, why do folks get so upset when they have these black representations on screen?
Wow. Okay, so now we got comic book conventions coming up. We got a few black ones that are coming up. When I go, I have to have reason and purpose. A lot of times when I go, I look to meet illustrators because I have the story. I got my characters. I got to meet an illustrator that can say, yo, Griff, this is what I'm going to charge you. This is what it's going to cost. This is what I need you to pay me every month. It's going to take me 4 months to get it done. Let's get it started. Let's go. And I'm going to throw some numbers out there. The average price to get a comic book done from concept to completion would be what?
Wow, that can vary because you got to look at the paper quality, the size of the comic, whether it's going to be black and white or color. So it's not really one particular answer, not to mention the artists out there, they're charging different prices. How many pages do you want? Like you had mentioned, how many pages do you want? Okay, so it's not any one answer. And for folks out there that are genuinely interested in it, what you want to do is you want to go out there and do the research and start looking, because all printers don't charge the same. So there's no one answer.
And that's real. And we have to be real.
You know, and not to mention, you know, the technology in terms of the artistry of it, the coloring of it. You know, how, you know, just the tools themselves, all of these things can affect the price in terms of how much it would cost someone out there that's interested in doing it and putting it together. But it can be done. You know, it's getting done.
Is $3,500 reasonable?
I would say, that's more than reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say definitely more.
Because that's what I spent on mine.
Yeah.
And it took a little, it's 120 days.
Yeah.
from concept to completion. I have a notebook, an old notebook of stories that I've written.
Right.
And then now, being at this age, seeing things through a different lens, I got to go back over some of them stories and start connecting. I mean, because I was talking about life forms on different planets and time travel and parallel universe and that kind of thing. And then a lot of times I would hold back and say, well, maybe that's too deep. Maybe that's too Star Trek-ish.
As a matter of fact, man, sometimes if you don't have that, folks are disappointed. You know, and because if you're going to talk about time travel, you also got to, now you got to have the science behind it. Because folks, you know, you have older readership now. And you have people that are questioning things. So it's not enough to simply say, you know, these brothers jumped through time. Some reader out there is going to be, well, how does that work? What theory is it based on? So another thing that ends up happening is you're going to have to read and research other things. If you're going to talk about living on another planet, let's say you want to talk about people visiting that planet. What, you know, how am I breathing on that planet? You know, how am I existing? Because trust me, these are the kind of things as far as
yes, they do.
Anybody out there that's ever gone